The rain hammered the streets like a warning. It was the kind of night that seemed to swallow sound, the kind where even the bravest people hurried instead of walking. But inside Ridgewood Police Station, the night shift officers were relaxed, sipping stale coffee and scrolling through reports until the station doors burst open with a boom loud enough to silence the entire room. Every head snapped toward the entrance, and what they saw made the atmosphere turn to stone. A massive man in a black leather jacket, soaked from the rain, stood in the doorway. His boots dripped water onto the polished floor, his beard glistened, and his cold, unblinking eyes scanned the room like a predator entering unfamiliar territory. Behind him, half-dragged, half-stumbling, was a uniformed officer handcuffed, bruised, and shaking. And the biker leader didn't say a single word. He just walked forward, slow, steady, terrifyingly controlled. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us humanity still exists, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. It truly helps keep these stories alive. The room remained suspended in shock for several seconds, too long and too quiet, as though the world itself forgot how to breathe. Everyone recognized the man instantly. He wasn't just any biker, he was Rylan Cross, president of the Iron Vipers Motorcycle Brotherhood. A club with a rough reputation, feared by many, misunderstood by most. But that wasn't why the station froze. They froze because this was the same man who had promised 10 years ago, in this very building, that he would never step foot in a police station again unless forced. And he was a man who never broke promises. Rylan walked straight toward the front desk, his heavy breathing the only sound echoing through the lobby. The officer he dragged, Officer Neil Turner, was a name everyone knew. Charming, respected, supposedly honorable. But now his uniform was ripped, his lip was split, and his face carried the unmistakable shame of a man caught doing something he couldn't justify. The officers inside watched the biker leader march like a storm about to break, but there was something strange beneath his fury, something deeper, older, almost wounded. As Rylan reached the desk, he released Officer Turner, letting the man collapse onto the floor. His voice finally cut through the silence, low and sharp, each word dripping with something that wasn't anger, but raw, protective pain. What happened next would unravel the truth behind why a feared biker leader had walked into the lion's den carrying one of their own. The real story had begun long before this night, long before the rain, the station, the handcuffs, back when Rylan Cross was a very different man. Before the leather jackets. Before the scars. Before he learned how easily the world could destroy the gentle. Rylan grew up in Ridgewood, raised by a mother who worked 3 jobs and still found time to teach him compassion, and a father he barely knew. As a teenager, he took beatings for kids who couldn't defend themselves, working tirelessly so his little sister, Ivy, would never face the same hardships. Ivy was his light, sweet, delicate, the kind of girl who made paper flowers because real ones were too expensive. She believed in people. She believed in goodness. She believed in her big brother. But the world didn't protect gentle souls, and Ivy's light dimmed the day she crossed paths with Officer Neil Turner. He was only a rookie back then but already learning the wrong lessons from the wrong mentors. The incident that changed everything happened quietly. Ivy had been walking home from school when a car followed her. The driver was Turner. He wasn't off duty, not exactly. But he wasn't supposed to be where he was. He pulled up beside her, said he just wanted to talk. When she tried to walk faster, he stepped out, grabbed her wrist. The details were blurry, haunted, distorted by trauma, but what mattered was that Ivy ran. She ran all the way home, shaking, crying, trying to explain words her mind couldn't say out loud. Rylan found her curled on the floor, unable to breathe, unable to speak. And when he finally pieced together her fragmented sentences, something inside him broke. He marched to the police station that same night, demanding justice. But Turner denied everything, the department closed ranks, and the case was brushed aside under misunderstanding. That night, Rylan realized the truth: some systems protect their own, no matter the harm done. And so Rylan Cross changed. He walked out of the station labeled aggressive, unstable, vengeful. But all he truly was heartbroken. That was the night he promised he would never step inside a police department again unless it was on his terms. That promise built the man the world came to fear. Years passed. Ivy grew quieter, more withdrawn, until her once bright energy flickered out. She left Ridgewood, chasing space, healing, distance, but she never fully recovered. And Rylan? He built a brotherhood from the broken, the abandoned, the misunderstood, men like him, who knew what it felt like to be failed by the people meant to protect them. Now, 10 years later, fate dragged Turner back into Rylan's life. This time, Turner wasn't chasing a child, he was extorting single mothers, threatening local shop owners, using his badge as a weapon instead of a shield. For Rylan, confronting him wasn't revenge. It was a promise kept to Ivy and every other person who'd faced the darkness of someone who hid behind authority. The confrontation happened that same rainy night. Rylan had been riding home when he saw Turner cornering a teenage boy behind a gas station, his hand gripping the kid's jacket while demanding he confess to a shoplifting that never happened. The moment Turner raised his hand to strike the boy, Rylan stepped in. Turner recognized him instantly, fear flashed across his face. But fear didn't stop him from drawing his baton. What followed was quick, brutal, but controlled. Rylan disarmed him, pinned him, and handcuffed him using the same cuffs Turner carried to intimidate others. Now, dragging Turner into the police station, Rylan had only one goal: make the truth unavoidable. The officers scrambled, some reaching for their weapons, others frozen by disbelief. Rylan stood firm. He didn't come to start a fight. He came to expose one. He laid out everything: the extortion, the threats, the pattern of abuse, the gas station incident. He told them he had witnesses, video proof, statements ready to be signed by the victims who were once too afraid to speak. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply told the truth with a calmness that felt heavier than rage. And the room listened. Not because they feared him, but because there was something undeniable about the weight behind his words. Something in his voice carried years of pain, years of injustice, years of watching people he loved suffer because of a system that sometimes forgot to care. One by one, officers lowered their hands. One by one, they realized the man standing before them wasn't a criminal. He was the reason the truth was finally being spoken. Turner was taken into custody. Statements were written. The gas station footage was pulled. It all matched what Rylan said. The truth could no longer hide. But the heaviness in Rylan's chest didn't fade. Not yet. Not until he walked outside, into the rain, alone. He stood by his bike, letting the cold drops hit his face, feeling the rise and fall of emotions he'd spent years burying. And then he looked up at the sky, not for answers, but for Ivy. He whispered, "It's done." And for the first time in a long while, he felt a quiet peace. As the story spread through Ridgewood, people who once feared the Iron Vipers began to understand them. They weren't villains. They were protectors, flawed, tough, but driven by loyalty and heart. And Rylan Cross became a local legend, not because he dragged a police officer into a station, but because he showed the courage to confront injustice with truth instead of violence. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep these emotional stories alive for others to find. Before we end, tell us in the comments. Do you believe one brave action can change an entire community?